What is happening, everybody? I hope you're all well, and welcome back to Dragon Age 2. So, this episode is another episode of the Codex reading discussions. If that's not something you're interested in, then go ahead and click away now and wait for another episode of the Let's Play. If this is something you're interested in, then let's dive in. We got some interesting things to read here. We got some characters, so we'll start with Viscount Marlowe Dumar. What happened to Viscount Perrin Threnhold was a travesty. I served in the keep, and my blood boils when I hear people call him a tyrant. He was a good man who tried his best to free Kirkwall from the control of those who use power for their own purposes. It's always been that way here, hasn't it? Long ago it was the Imperium, then it was the Qunari, then the Orlesians, now the Templars. When have we ever ruled ourselves? He tried to kick those Templar bastards out and give us real freedom. And what did it get him? Now, the Chantry has chosen Lord Marlowe Dumar as his replacement. After weeks and weeks of arguing, after telling the nobility that they would be choosing their Viscount, after everyone saying it was time to use a new title, why not King? Why keep using the name imposed by the Orlesians? And after all that, the Chantry chose him. I suppose I can see why. Everyone thinks he has the spine of a jellyfish, and it does seem that way. Truly, he has the Templars on one side, the nobility on the other, and everyone expects him to solve all their problems. Yet he has no power to actually accomplish it. He keeps the peace as best he can, and I think he does a good job, even if no one else does. And he loves that sad little boy. I see the way young Seamus looks at his father, and I feel for him. Locked up in the keep with no other children, watching his father be put down by every self-important windbag that walks into the Great Hall. It makes me miss the days of Perrin Threnhold, even if they were chaotic. We can only hope that one day Seamus gives this city the legacy it deserves. Excerpt from a letter by an unknown servant found in the gallows vaults, 928 Dragon. So we did already see a little bit of Viscount Marlowe's appeasement tactics here. He doesn't want to piss off the Qunari, and he doesn't want to piss off the nobility either, and we saw both sides of that affect the quest where we got his son from the Tal-Vashoth. He didn't want to send the city guard because he didn't want to upset the Qunari by having an official hand in taking his son away from a Tal-Vashoth. He also didn't want to go public with the fact that he needed assistance with that because he didn't want the political vultures around him to use it as a bargaining chip that the Qunari had influence inside his house. And of course, he couldn't let it stand that his son had run off either, so that's why he ended up hiring outside help in the form of the Winters and then us. So we did already see a little bit of his jellyfish spine there, not willing to take a stand even when his own son's safety is on the line, so that does ring true. Merril. The stories tell us that all Elven once had the gift, but like so many things, it was lost. It's a keeper's job to remember, to restore what we can. As each generation passes, magic becomes more rare among the Dalish. As the gift dies out, talented children are moved between clans so that every keeper has a successor, and no clan is in danger of being left without guidance. Merril was born to the Illyrian clan, which wandered the hills of Navarra. She was the third child of the clan with the ancient gift born to her. When the next Alven gathering of the clans occurred, she was given to the Sabre clan to be first to keep a Murathari. Merril was just 4 years old. She spent most of her life in Ferelden and the Qunari wilds until her clan was driven north by the Blight. This one should be interesting. Knight Captain Cullen. Knight Captain Cullen was one of the few Templars who survived the incident at the Circle of Magi in Ferelden. The possessed blood mage Ordred took over the tower, and in his madness, he filled it with summoned demons and abominations. Cullen was imprisoned, tortured, and forced to watch the slaughter of his fellow Templars. The ordeal shook him, and he emerged from it convinced that even Templars fail to see how dangerous mages can be. After Cullen returned to his duties, it became clear that he would go to any lengths to enforce the Chantry's rule. His zeal troubled Knight Commander Gregor, who feared it unwise to let Cullen watch over the men and women he deemed responsible for his torment. Gregor sent Cullen to serve under Knight Commander Meredith in Kirkwall, and Meredith found Cullen's view of mages similar to her own. Of her company, only Cullen had seen mages' potentially terrifying power firsthand, and she believed he could influence the other Templars' views. Consequently, Cullen rose quickly through the ranks to become Knight Captain and Meredith's second in command. It does make sense that they would view it equally. We don't know why Meredith sees mages the way that she does yet, but we will get notes and hints on that, and it will explain itself, and it all does track in a very prominent way. And it also makes sense. Obviously, we saw firsthand what happened to Cullen. He was locked in the prison and tortured for days until the warden showed up to free him. So again, there's a lot of dangerous potential inside every single mage. Without guidance and a little bit of a watchful eye, the whole world could end. The Veil. I detest this notion that the veil is some manner of invisible curtain that separates the world of the living from the world of the spirits. Whether it be called the Fade or the Beyond is a matter of racial politics I refuse to indulge in at the moment. There is no this side and that side when it comes to the veil. One cannot think of it as a physical thing or a barrier, or even a shimmering wall of holy light. Thank you very much for that image, your perfection. Think of the veil instead as opening one's eyes. Before you opened them, you saw our world as you see it now. Static, solid, unchanging. Now that they are open, you see our world as the spirits see it. Chaotic, ever-changing, a realm where the imagined and the remembered have as much substance as that which is real. More, in fact. The spirit sees everything as defined by will and memory, and this is why they are so very lost when they cross the veil. In our world, imagination has no substance. Objects exist independently of how we remember them, or what emotions we associate with them. Mages alone possess the power to change the world with their minds, and perhaps this forms the nature of a demon's attraction to them. Who can say? Regardless, the act of passing through the veil is much more about changing one's perceptions than a physical transition. The veil is an idea. It is the act of transition itself, and it is the only fact that both living beings and spirits find the transition difficult that gives the veil any credence as a physical barrier at all. From a dissertation on the Fade as a physical manifestation, by Marino, senior enchanter of the Minratha Circle of Magi, 655 Steel. Blood Magic. The Forbidden School. Foul and corrupt are you, who have taken my gift and turned it against my children. Transfigurations, 1810. The ancient Tevinter did not originally consider blood magic a school of its own. Rather, they saw it as a means to achieve greater power in any school of magic. The name, of course, refers to the fact that magic of this type uses life, specifically in the form of blood instead of mana. It was common practice, at one time, for a magister to keep a number of slaves on hand so that, should he undertake the working of a spell that was physically beyond his abilities, he could use the blood of his slaves to bolster the casting. Over time, however, the Imperium discovered types of spells that could only be worked by blood. Although lyrium will allow a mage to send his conscious mind into the Fade, blood would allow him to find the sleeping minds of others, view their dreams, and even influence or dominate their thoughts. Just as treacherous, blood magic allows the veil to be opened completely, so that demons may physically pass through it into our world. Thought for some time to have been stamped out in the Imperium, the practice of blood magic seems to be on the rise in recent years. The current Black Divine has lifted most of the prohibitions against dreamwalking, and so many mages in the Imperium now use it openly in the name of research. From the Four Schools, a treatise, 3rd edition, by First Enchanter Josephus. The Qun. Long ago, the Ashkari lived in a great city by the sea. Wealth and prosperity shone upon the city like sunlight, and still its people grumbled in discontent. The Ashkari walked the streets of his home, and saw that all around him were the signs of genius. Triumphs of architecture, artistic masterpieces, the palaces of wealthy merchants, libraries, and concert halls, but he also saw signs of misery, the poor, sick, lost, frightened, and the hopeless. And the Ashkari asked himself, how can one people be both wise and ignorant, great and ruined, triumphant and despairing? So the Ashkari left the land of his birth, seeking out other cities and nations, looking for a people who had found wisdom enough to end hopelessness and despair. He wandered for many years through empires filled with palaces and gardens, but in every nation of the wise, the great, and the mighty, he found the forgotten, the abandoned, and the poor. Finally, he came to a vast desert, a wasteland of bare rock clawing at the empty sky, where he took shelter in the shadows of a towering rock, and resolved to meditate until he found his answer or perished. Many days passed, until one night, as he gazed out from under the shadow of the rocks, he saw the lifeless desert awaken. 100,000 locusts hatched from the barren ground, and as one, they turned south. A single wave of moving earth. The Ashkari rose and followed in their wake. A path of devastation miles wide, the once verdant land turned to waste, and the Ashkari's eyes were opened. Existence is a choice. There is no chaos in the world, only complexity. Knowledge of the complex is wisdom. From wisdom of the world comes wisdom of the self. Mastery of the self is mastery of the world. Loss of the self is the source of suffering. Suffering is a choice, and we can refuse it. It is in our own power to create the world or destroy it. And the Ashkari went forth to his people. An excerpt from the Qun, Canto 1. That is a very interesting story of one of the origins of how the Qunari and the Qun as a religion and doctrine came to be. And even just reading that, doesn't this sound quite appealing? Existence is a choice, suffering is a choice, we can refuse it, mastery of self and wisdom. It's all very nicely put together there. I can certainly see the appeal. Mana and the use of magic. Mana is that which defines a mage. It is potential that dwells within a person, but does not always manifest itself. All men are connected to the Fade. We go there to dream. But only those with this potential may draw upon its power. Mana is, then, a measurement of one's ability to draw power from the Fade, and it is this power that is expended in magic. As in all other things, it has limits. Just as a man has the strength to lift only so much weight and no more, a mage cannot work more magic at one time than his mana allows. If he wishes to work magic that would be beyond his strength, a mage must bolster his mana with lyrium. Without lyrium, it is possible for the reckless to expend their own life force in the working of magic, and occasionally, ambitious apprentices injure or even kill themselves by overexertion. From the lectures of First Enchanter Wenceslas. So assuming this is true, that would mean that if a mage's mana battery is out and they continue to push on, then casting spells literally sucks their life force out of their bodies, but it's not blood magic. They're not expending their life force in that way. I guess it just takes so much of a toll on them that when the mana is out, it just drains from where it can drain from. An interesting distinction there between blood magic and still using your own life force. The Imperial Chantry. There are those who would tell you that the Chantry is the same everywhere as it is here, that the divine in Val-Ryo reigns supreme in the eyes of the Maker, and that this fact is unquestioned throughout Thedas. Do not believe it. The Maker's second commandment, magic must serve man, not rule over him, never held the same meaning within the ancient Tevinter Imperium as it did elsewhere. The Chantry there interpreted the rule as meaning that mages should never control the minds of other men, and that otherwise their magic should benefit the rulers of men as much as possible. When the clerics of Tevinter altered the Chant of Light to reflect this interpretation of the commandment, the divine in Val-Ryo ordered the clerics to revert to the original chant. They refused, claiming corruption within Val-Ryo, an argument that grew, until, in 487 Towers, the Chantry in Tevinter elected its own legitimate and uncorrupted divine Valhall, who was not only male, but also happened to be one of the most prominent members of the Tevinter Circle of Magi. This black divine was reviled outside Tevinter, his existence an offense to the Chantry in Val-Ryo. After 4 exalted marches to dislodge these rebels, all that the Chantry in Val-Ryo accomplished was to cement the separation. While most aspects of the Imperial Chantry's teachings are the same, prohibitions against magic have been weakened, and male priests have become more prevalent. The Circle of the Magi today rules Tevinter directly, ever since Archon Nomarin was elected in 734 Storm directly from the ranks of the Enchanters, to great applause from the public. He dispensed with the old rules forbidding mages from taking part in politics, and within a century, the true rulers within the various imperial houses, the mages, took their places openly within the government. The Imperial Divine is now always drawn from the ranks of the First Enchanters and operates as Divine and Grand Enchanter both. This is utter heresy to any member of the Chantry outside of Tevinter, a return to the days of the Magisters, which brought the Blight down upon us. But it exists, and even though we have left the Tevinter Imperium to the mercies of the dread Qunari, still they have endured. Further confrontation between the Black Divine and our so-called White Divine is inevitable. From Edicts of the Black Divine, by Father David of Carinus, 811 Blessed. Tal-Vashoth. Being lost in an ancient Tevinter ruin in northern Ravine is highly overrated. And then I found myself beset by several bands of Qunari, apparently working in concert. I fled, and managed to hide in a little village by the name of Vindar. The people there, mostly humans and a few elves, were devout followers of the Qun. It was the most organized village I ever laid eyes on. The houses were identical and arranged along perfectly orthogonal lines. The fields were well tended and apparently communal, but there were signs of damage everywhere, as if the town had suffered repeated sieges. Buildings shattered, fields burned, and a great many empty houses. I spent the night in the home of Vindar's matriarch, who introduced herself only as Sia. When I tried to regale my hostess with the tale of my Qunari assailants, I discovered something. Qunari, Sia said, are people who follow the Qun. Her people, those born into Qunari society, who reject the Qun, are called Vashoth, which means grey ones. These grey ones must leave their homes, for they have no place among the Qunari. Sadly, many turn against the society that cast them out. These outcasts call themselves Tal-Vashoth, the true grey ones. Often, they have no skills to make an honest living, so they sell themselves into service, usually becoming mercenaries. Even the most inept fighter among the Qunari race possesses prodigious size and an intimidating visage. These, she informed me, were my attackers in the countryside, the same band that wreaked such havoc on Vindar. The Tal-Vashoth wage a bitter war against the Qun, the Qunari, and sometimes against Order itself. They are no match for the Qunari army, so they generally strike at farms, travelers, and those who stray too far from Qunari protection. I was lucky to escape with my life. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genevieve. The Seekers of Truth. Sir Whitmore, when I mentioned powers greater than the Templars, I didn't mean the Chantry. Sure, they command the Templars, but that was not always so. The Inquisition once hunted heretics and cultists as well as mages, and their reign of terror ended only with the inception of the Circle of Magi. They became the Templar Order, for good or ill, the Watchers of the Mages, and the martial arm of the Chantry. It was mutually beneficial arrangement, but few know that the Chantry created yet another order to watch over the Templars, the Seekers of Truth. I know little of them myself, but I can say the following things with certainty. They serve the divine, and they are feared. When a Seeker steps from the shadows, Templars run for cover, because why would he come unless the Templars somehow failed in their duties? Seekers are extremely effective investigating abuses within the circle and hunting particularly evasive apostates. It's said they are immune to a blood mage's mind control, and possess the ability to read minds or erase memories, but this is likely exaggeration. So we turn to my original dilemma. Who watches powers greater than that of the Templars? One assumes it's the divine, but how much could she know about their activities when their very existence is a mystery to most? A letter from an unknown priest found in the Grand Cathedral archives, 880 Blessed. The Qunari. The people of the Qun are, perhaps, the least understood group in Thedas. The Qunari wars were brutal, but so was the Chantry Schism. So was the fall of the Imperium. Some of this misunderstanding is an accident of nature. The race we call Qunari are formidable. Nature has given them fierce horns and strange eyes, and the ignorant look on them and see monsters. Some is an accident of language. Few among the Qun's people speak the common tongue, and fewer speak it well. In a culture that strives for mastery, to have only a passable degree of skill is humiliating indeed, and so they often keep quiet among foreigners, out of shame. But much of it is a result of the culture itself. The Qunari view their whole society as a single creature, a living entity whose health and well-being is the responsibility of all. Each individual is only a tiny part of the whole, a drop of blood in its veins, important not for itself, but for what it is to the whole creature. Because of this, the Qunari most outsiders meet belong to the army, which the Qun regards as if it were the physical body. Arms, legs, eyes, and ears. The things a creature needs in order to interact with the world. One cannot get to know a person solely by studying his hand or his foot, and so one cannot truly meet the Qunari until one has visited their cities. This is where their mind and soul dwell. In Saharon and Parvalin, one can truly see the Qunari in their entirety. There, the unification of the Qunari into a single being is most evident. Workers, whom the Qun calls the mind, produce everything the Qunari require. The soul, the priesthood, seeks a greater understanding of the self, the world, and exhorts the body and mind to continually strive for perfection. The body serves as the go-between for the mind, the soul, and the world. Everyone and everything has a place, decided by the Qun, in which they work for the good of the whole. It is a life of certainty, of equality, if not individuality. From the writings of the seer of Kontar, 841 blessed, and you can see there the kind of level of meaning and belonging, that sense of destiny you would get by being involved in such a faction, which is why I draw so many converts, even from those that aren't of the Qunari. It's just a very... You can see why anybody mired in chaos, or anybody feeling purposeless, or like they don't have much direction in life, you can see why those people would hop on the Qun immediately, just by reading what it's all about. Right. We've been going for around 21.5 minutes, so I'll read one more. Let's pick something good. Let us do Vallaslin. Take a sip of my coffee before we get started on this one. Vallaslin, blood writing. After my encounter with the Dalish elves on the road to Navarra, I studied every book on the elves I could find. I sought out legends and myths and history and tried to make sense of it all. But there is only so much one can learn from books. I knew that in order to truly understand the Dalish, I would have to seek them out. A dreadful idea, in hindsight. In my defense, I was young, and also inebriated when the idea popped into my head. Unfortunately, even after I had regained some measure of sobriety, the idea still held appeal. It proved remarkably resistant to my attempts to ignore it. I gave in after months of that nagging thought at the back of my head, and set out to learn about the Dalish firsthand. I tramped through the forests bordering Orlais for weeks before I finally found, or was found by, a Dalish hunter. I stumbled into one of his traps and suddenly was hanging from a tree with a rope about my ankles. So there I was, defenseless, upside down with my robe over my head, my undercloths on display. Descriptions of my predicament might elicit laughter these days, but trust me when I say it was a situation I would not wish on anyone. Thankfully, my ridiculous appearance may have caused my captor to stay his hand. What threat is a silly human with his pants showing? And so he sat, made a small fire, and began to skin the deer he had caught. I soon mustered the courage to speak. I tried to assure him that I was not there to harm him, but he laughed at this and replied that if I were there to harm him, I had failed terribly. Eventually, we got to talking, and when I say talking, I mean that I asked him questions, and occasionally he would deign to answer. He told me that while some Dalish actively seek out human travelers to rob or frighten, most of his people would rather be left alone. He seemed to believe that punishing the humans for past actions only led to more violence. I asked him about the intricate tattoos on his face. He told me they were called Vallaslin, blood writing. His were symbols of Andruil, the huntress, one of the most highly revered elven goddesses. He said the Dalish mark themselves to stand out from humans and from those of their kin who have chosen to live under human rule. He said that Vallaslin remind his people that they must never again surrender their beliefs. When he finished skinning the deer, he cut me down. By the time I had righted myself and conquered the dizziness of all the blood rushing out of my head, he was gone. I do not recommend that my readers seek out the Dalish for themselves. I was very lucky to have met the man that I did, and to have walked away from our meeting unscathed. Perhaps the Maker watches over those who seek knowledge with an open heart. I certainly would like to think so. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genevieve. That's a pretty cool little story. The Vallaslin is actually put on the faces of the Dalish elves right as they come to age. Like, you aren't an official part of the clan proper as an adult until you get your Vallaslin, so that's quite interesting. And If you go all the way down the line and eventually meet Solus and Dragon Age Inquisition, it turns out that the Vallaslin are actually slave markings. The gods would brand their followers as property with the Vallaslin, so the Dalish, not having the whole picture and the full knowledge of their history that they worship, they unwittingly mark themselves as slaves, which is quite sad in a kind of ironic sense that they are revering slave masters and marking themselves as cattle like that. But we won't find that out for a very long time, and it's only because we meet Solus that we ever do find that out. Although the Dalish will be the first to tell you what little is left. They try and keep clear, but they don't really know. At least any of the honest Dalish will tell you that. Alright everybody, that is going to be the wrap for the Codex episode, so thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe, leave a like and a comment. If you want to support the cause and help improve the channel, you particularly enjoy what I do here, please do check out the links in the description below. Otherwise, stay tuned and I'll see you soon with more Dragon Age 2. Take care everybody, have a great day. Peace.